President Biden called it America's Day as he and Vice President Harris took the helm.
Joining us now to break it all down, Matt Klink, our political consultant, and Kerman Maddox, a member of the Democratic National Committee. Both great to see you right now. Let's start about President Biden's address. Let's start with Matt. Matt, let's talk about the theme, a big word used today, unity.
He struck the right tone. It was not bombastic or or finger pointing. It was one of, I want to bring this country together. Even if you didn't vote for me, I'll be your president. I think he really extended the olive branch when he said to the 74 million people that did not vote for him, give him a chance. And I think that he also called for a lowering of the rhetoric, which, to be honest with you, after 4 years of just caustic rhetoric and Twitter beatdowns, America can use a little pause right now and some sanity and some cooler heads.
Kerman, what theme stood out to you?
Well, there are a number of things. I think Matt is right. I mean, the call for unity, Glenn, is really, really important because of the divisive nature that exists in this country right now. I don't think there's any way to sugarcoat or ignore that we've got some serious problems. People are divided between urban and rural, liberal, conservative, not only in a political environment, but in everyday life. And so the idea that Joe Biden says we need to figure out a way to tone down the rhetoric, turn down the political rhetoric, bring people together is really important because I, for one, am very concerned about the fragile nature of our democracy. And in order for it to survive, we need people to kind of come together and work together. So I thought he said all the right things. I thought the tone was right. It was not a policy speech. It was not a political speech. It was a speech that was designed to bring the nation together. And Joe Biden thinks he's the person who can do it. And I frankly have faith and confidence that he can do it.
And President Biden also getting to work immediately today. It was a historic day, a very busy day. A lot of people are going to be tired tomorrow, but life moves on tomorrow. What do you foresee in the next week or two, even with this impeachment trial looming?
So is that for me, Lou?
Yes.
So I think today's the high mark. It doesn't get any better than this. Tomorrow you start working and then the divisions will come out. So I think the first thing he's going to do is attack the coronavirus crisis. That's the number one issue confronting America. Next, after that, you've got to figure out a way to come up with some sort of economic relief for a lot of people out there who are really struggling. And then the other thing is, if you're looking to achieve something where you can get Republicans to get on board right away, let's look for something that's winnable. Matt referenced this earlier, and I agree. Look for an infrastructure bill that can throw millions of dollars, if not billions of dollars, into the economy, get people to working, get things to turn around. That's something that I think he can get bipartisan support on. I would hope he would go for that right away.
All right, Matt, what about Vice President Kamala Harris? She's now the nation's first female, first Black, and first South Asian vice president. What is she going to bring to her role?
I think she's going to bring a certainly, by the descriptors you just use, a different perspective to the job, which I think will be a breath of fresh air in Washington, D.C. But I think she's going to have a really difficult time in the sense that not only does she have to fulfill the role of vice president, she can't be waiting around the Senate to break ties. So she's got to hope that some type of coalition of the moderates emerges that allows some of this Biden agenda to go through, because I think that her hope is that her office in the Senate side of the Capitol goes largely unnoticed and remains ceremonial, because she has some things on her agenda that she's very passionate about. And frankly, it's what drew so many Americans to the Biden ticket.
All right, Kerman Maddox and Matt Klink, thank you so much for your insight. We really appreciate it. Big day.
We are breaking down today's historic events and what comes next for the Biden administration.
And joining us now, Matt Klink, our political consultant, and Sarah Hill, Associate Professor of Political Science at Cal State Fullerton. Good to see you guys, and thanks for hanging in there with us all day today. No matter what. It's a pleasure. You seems like you're there in the square. All right, let's talk about from swearing in to the inaugural parade. Talk about the tone of today's events and why tone was so important.
Well, I'll start, Lou. So tone is the underpinning of how Joe Biden is going to change the dynamic in Washington, D.C. It was authoritative, but genuine and compassionate and empathetic and optimistic at the same time. Something that, to be honest with you, we've been lacking that for 4 years. And just because it's Donald Trump's style that is so opposite of what Joe Biden is all about. And I think it struck the right tone, not only for today, but to be honest with you, it's what the nation needs right now. They just need the volume turned down after 4 years of craziness.
So, Sarah, how did the pandemic play a role today, and how will it play a role moving forward?
Oh my goodness, in so many ways. It was his very first executive order today was the order that on federal property you have to wear a mask. And his second one of the very next ones was equity in healthcare, because the pandemic has exposed even more about inequities in healthcare. And so he is getting down to business right away on we have to deal with the pandemic. And we saw it in so many ways. There was social distancing at the ceremony, at the inauguration ceremony. Everyone has had masks on throughout today. You know, it's been everywhere, but it's his first order of business. And that's what he said is the very first thing I have to do on all fronts, executive orders, legislation. He wants the pandemic relief bill passed. That's his first order of business on all fronts. So it's just been, unfortunately, everywhere today. But I totally agree with what Matt was saying. It's to show we're taking action. The government is here acting on this now. We're doing something about this. And he's trying to set that hopeful tone that we all need right now.
Matt, let's go back a little bit and talk about President Obama when Joe Biden was his vice president. Obama was a young senator who didn't have a lot of experience, and Joe Biden did. He was able to play that role, be able to cross over the aisle, be able to have those discussions. Now that dynamic is going to change a bit. Now, Biden, obviously in office, Kamala Harris has been there as well, both senators. How will their dynamic play out, in your opinion?
So Kamala Harris does not have those deep relationships that Joe Biden had. She's more of a firebrand. You know, just case in point would be her interrogation of Justice Kavanaugh during his confirmation hearings that garnered her a lot of accolades from progressives and from women, but frankly, certainly didn't with Republicans. Joe Biden has been through many battles. He has worked across the aisle with Republicans and Democrats, and I would imagine that he will be more heavily involved in the nitty-gritty deal cutting of Congress and the Senate, and that Kamala Harris will play more of the stick, which is frankly a role that she relishes and she's very good at. So it's just going to be a different dynamic than the Obama-Biden dynamic. Joe Biden will be much more of the backslapper, and Kamala Harris will carry the stick around and get things done.
Well, first 100 days of an administration are always critical. What do you think will be the biggest accomplishment they can get done?
It's the vaccine, right? I mean, it's getting the vaccine out to Americans. If they can do that, and he has said that's top priority, 100 million vaccines in 100 days. And that's what everyone's going to be watching, I think, most closely is how close do they get to that? How much of a difference do they make there? We know that the federal government didn't have as much of the vaccine as we thought they did. And so now we're kind of scrambling and the states are scrambling a bit. That's what everybody's going to be watching. And it's going to be critical to start to change things.
All right, Matt and Sarah, thank you so much all day for your insight. I think I reached out to you guys on LinkedIn, so now we're friends on LinkedIn. All right.
Excellent.
Have a good one. I'm sure we'll talk to you guys a lot this year. Thanks.
Got it.
President Biden called it America's Day as he and Vice President Harris took the helm of the nation.
Joining us now to break it all down are Matt Klink, our political consultant, and Kerman Maddox, a member of the Democratic National Committee. Welcome, gentlemen. Kerman, we'll start with you. Throughout the speech of Joe Biden's inauguration speech, we heard a lot of unity themes, of course. Tell us what you think about the next 100 days and how the Biden administration plans on taking action to create unity in a country that is just so divided.
Well, sure. I think the reason you heard him talk about unity so much is because the country is so badly divided right now. You look at what happened 2 weeks ago at the Capitol when people tried to stop the count to certify his election in such a violent manner. That shook a lot of people up. So I think Joe Biden believes the only way to get a handle on the serious issues like the coronavirus pandemic and the economic relief that struggling Americans need, he's got to figure out a way to bring the nation together. He could bring it together with his tone and his actions. And the quicker he can get a handle on the coronavirus pandemic and show positive results, I think that's the message that people will get, that the government is serious. They're managing crisis and they'll come together. I expect Joe Biden to lead by example and leave the politics to the Senate and the House. I think he'll try and fly above the radar. That, in my opinion, is going to be a unifying message and a unifying tactic to kind of bring the country together.
Matt, as you know, the honeymoon phase for an incoming administration is short. Nevertheless, there is an opportunity here for President Biden to make a mark, in particular because he and his party control both houses of Congress. What do you expect realistically in the first 100 days?
I think that Joe Biden is going to get a fairly decent honeymoon if he does stay above politics and he shows empathy and compassion and really strives to unify. He has a bold agenda that, frankly, it doesn't matter whether you're a Republican, a Democrat, or a decline to state. If Joe Biden succeeds in getting 100 million Americans vaccinated, all of America wins, and everyone should be rooting for him in that regard. The politics will play itself out, and there will be disagreements, but if we can reestablish civility, I think it will bode well for America in the future.
America in the future and how we look as far as the United States to the world. How do you feel that on day one of the Biden administration and what we've seen so far today, how we look in the eyes of the world?
Well, I think when you think about the themes that he talked about, he talked about unity. He talked about respecting democracy, defending the Constitution, defending Americans. He hit all the right marks on the tones and the theme. And I think that's the message that our allies want to hear overseas. And frankly, that's the message Americans want to hear. He said, respect fact, stop the lies. And frankly, that was the way I was raised. Facts matter, truth matters, stop the lies. So I think he hit all the right things. I think he said all the right things. And I think that's the way we're going to kind of bring the country together. And I think that's exactly the message he wants to get to our allies. And he wants them to bring them back in the fold. And the idea of rejoining the climate agreement is a good step in the right direction.
Matt, what do you see as Vice President Kamala Harris's role going forward compared with what we saw over the last 4 years with Vice President Pence?
Vice President Pence was Donald Trump's most ardent cheerleader. I think you're going to see a slightly different role for Kamala Harris. She's clearly more progressive than is Joe Biden. She has considerably less experience in the United States Senate. And I think that she hopes that she can go out and advocate for some of the issues that she's really passionate about, fighting to break through that glass ceiling, fighting to end discrimination, things that are priorities for Joe Biden. But Kamala Harris is so credible when she talks about them. I know what she doesn't want to do. She does not want to spend a lot of time occupying her office in the United States Senate. Because it means that the Senate is evenly divided and she has to break ties. She's hoping that there are broad majorities for Joe Biden's policies. But, you know, she's an attack dog, too. I think that when the stick needs to come out, Kamala Harris has demonstrated that both verbally and politically, she is more than adept and can handle her own in a crowded room.
All right, Matt and Kerman, living history with you guys as we have the past couple of months. It's so good to see you. Thank you so much for your insight tonight.